main news of the hour. At this hour, I'm Andrii in the studio. Hello? Overnight Saturday, the Russian Federation launched one Iskander-M ballistic missile and more than 100 drones at Ukraine. Of all the drones, at least 65 are Shaheds. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, 89 Russian drones of various types were neutralized in the skies over Ukraine. Air defense systems were active in the north, south, and east of our country. There were confirmed strikes at 16 locations. At night, the Russians struck the south of Odesa region. As a result of the massive attack, the Orlivka border checkpoint on the border with Romania was damaged. Specifically, the infrastructure of the ferry complex was hit. This was reported by the State Customs Service of Ukraine. The checkpoint was forced to suspend its operations. According to local authorities, the strikes also damaged the facades and roofs of administrative buildings, as well as more than a dozen cargo trucks. Preliminary reports indicate that 2 people were injured. Due to the shelling in the Odesa region, Romania scrambled combat aircraft. However, according to the military command, the drones did not cross into Romanian airspace. Russian forces continue to strike Ukrainian cities and villages. In the Sinelnikova district of Dnipropetrovsk region, a local resident was injured as a result of the shelling. The Russians attacked one of the communities in the Pavlohad district with drones. A fire broke out there. Infrastructure was destroyed. Russian forces shelled Nikopol and 3 communities in the district with artillery and FPV drones. In the frontline region of Ukraine, under Russian shelling in Donetsk region, the Russian army killed 1 civilian. Another person was wounded. In the Sumy region, 14 settlements came under Russian attacks. There were no casualties or injuries there. In the Kharkiv region, 2 people were wounded in the past day. 8 settlements in the region came under fire. In the Zaporizhia region, 18 settlements were affected. Also, over the past day, the Russians shelled Kherson and more than 30 towns and villages. 6 people were wounded there. The number of people killed as a result of the Russian attack on Ternopil has risen to 32. According to the State Emergency Service, rescuers found the body of another woman under the rubble of a destroyed building. At the site of the Russian strike, emergency rescue operations are ongoing. Let me remind you, Russia attacked Ternopil with missiles on November 19th, and the strikes hit an old residential area. 2 apartment buildings were damaged. In one of them, 7 floors were destroyed. Dozens of people became victims of this Russian terrorist attack, including 6 children. About 100 city residents were wounded. Among them are children as well. At this moment, 7 people are considered missing. Russia cannot win the war against Ukraine. This is a war for the future of our children. This was stated by the head of the Polish government, Donald Tusk. This is how he commented on the death of a 7-year-old Polish citizen in Ternopil who died as a result of a Russian strike on a multi-story building.
Amelia was 7 years old. 7, Polish child. She died in Ternopil as a result of a brutal Russian missile strike. She will no longer be able to realize any of her dreams. This brutal war must end, and Russia cannot win it, because it is also a war for the future of our children. Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland, on the social network IKS. The real path to a just peace was discussed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine with colleagues from France, the United Kingdom, Poland, Finland, Italy, Germany, and the EU. Andrii Sybiga shared the results of recent contacts with President Volodymyr Zelensky and emphasized the need for continued pressure on Russia. We discussed in detail the elements of the peace proposals presented by the United States and our joint efforts on the path to a just peace. I also emphasized the importance of continuing transatlantic pressure to force Russia to end the war and thanked our partners for their willingness to strengthen support for Ukraine at this critical time. Andrii Sybiga, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The United States proposal to end Russia's war against Ukraine is a real way to achieve peace, and President Volodymyr Zelensky should accept it. This was stated by U.S. President Donald Trump during a press conference at the White House. He emphasized that the war in Ukraine has already claimed many lives and that the losses are significant on both sides. But if Kyiv does not accept Washington's proposal, it will have to. Keep fighting. We
talk to their people. We have a plan. What's happening is terrible. This war should never have happened. The cold winter is ahead, and many major energy facilities have been attacked. We have a way to achieve peace. I think we have a way that Ukraine will have to approve.
The peace plan intended to end the war in Ukraine must include 3 key points. This was written on social network X by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. First, it is necessary to stop the killing while preserving Ukraine's sovereignty. Second, the plan must be acceptable to both sides, both Ukraine and Russia. And third, maximize the chances that the war will not resume. At the same time, Vance is convinced that critics of Trump's peace initiative misunderstand it. In the U.S. Congress, they have begun collecting signatures to bring a bill to a vote that would strengthen sanctions against Russia. This was reported by Republican U.S. House Representative Brian Fitzpatrick on social network X. He announced the intensification of efforts following a report by the Wall Street Journal that U.S. President Donald Trump is allegedly demanding that Ukraine agree to a peace plan by November 27th. The petition mechanism allows the bill to be brought to the floor without the support of the leadership, if it is signed by 218 members of Congress. The day before, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz had a phone conversation with Donald Trump. He reported this on social network X. The leaders discussed the U.S. peace proposal for Ukraine and agreed on next steps at the advisor level. Merz described the conversation with Trump as constructive and substantive. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. This is how the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, commented on the U.S. peace proposal. She stated that she had a phone conversation with the head of the Ukrainian state, Volodymyr Zelensky. The parties discussed the current situation in Ukraine, as well as the European Union's further plans.
From day one, Europe has stood by Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. We are working toward a just and lasting peace together with our friends and partners. We discussed the current situation and made it clear that nothing about Ukraine should happen without Ukraine. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, on social network X.
European leaders intend to bring up the issue of the U.S. peace plan for Ukraine as a separate discussion at the G20 summit. Today, it kicked off in Johannesburg, South Africa. World leaders have already arrived at the summit venue. Among them are German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, as well as representatives from Malaysia, Namibia, Egypt, the Netherlands, Guinea-Bissau, and more. I should note that for the first time, the G20 meeting is taking place without the participation of the leaders of the United States, China, and Russia. U.S. President Donald Trump stated that Washington is completely boycotting this meeting and that Russia and China will be represented by high-ranking officials. A reconciliatory meeting. U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed the newly elected mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, in the Oval Office. The head of the White House called the conversation productive, despite sharp political differences. Trump congratulated Mamdani on winning an incredible race and said that they both share the desire to improve life in the largest city in the United States.
Had a great meeting. Really good. Very productive. We have something in common. We want our beloved city to thrive, and I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race, competing against a lot of smart people, starting from the very first primaries, with very tough, very smart people. And he beat them, and he did it easily.
Let me remind you, on November 4th, the Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani defeated his opponents, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa. Mamdani became the first Muslim to serve as mayor in New York City. He is a staunch socialist, advocates for higher taxes on the wealthy, wants to ensure universal access to preschool education, and plans to gradually introduce free bus rides in the city. Previously, Trump called Mamdani, and I quote, one of the communist crazies, but later softened his rhetoric. Today, November 22nd, Ukraine marks the 81st anniversary of the Holodomor of 1932 to 1933. According to a presidential decree, this day traditionally falls on the last Saturday of November. Commemorative events are planned throughout Ukraine, except for the territories temporarily occupied by Russia. This was reported by the Ukrainian Institute of National Remembrance. The events are held under the slogan, "They killed our freedom with hunger." Those who were unbroken in 1933 are invincible today. In addition, the Ukrainian diaspora will hold its own events in 32 countries around the world. Historians believe that the Soviet authorities created an artificial famine in Ukraine to suppress peasant uprisings.
These repressions had an anti-Ukrainian character. That is, wherever Ukrainians made up the absolute majority, especially in rural areas, that's where the harshest confiscations of all food were carried out. Everything was organized as a genocide by the Russian authorities, the Soviet authorities, and there should be no illusions about that.
The President and First Lady of Ukraine honored the memory of the victims of the Holodomor. The service was held at the Kiev-Pechursk Lavra, and representatives of the President's office and defenders of Ukraine were also present. The service was conducted by the primate of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, His Beatitude Epiphanius. Prayers for the victims of Soviet repressions were also offered by the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, Sviatoslav, the head of the All-Ukrainian Union of Evangelical Churches, Valery Antonyuk, the Mufti of the Spiritual Administration of Muslims of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, Idar Rustemov, and spiritual leaders of other religious denominations represented in Ukraine.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.